Hello and welcome to the Bald Truth Review, episode 7. Can it really be 7 whole weeks since I began this project? Well, yes, I guess it must, although the time seems to have flown by quicker than a Rod Bryan speech. This week's theme could almost be what the papers say, because a couple of stories have come to my attention in that way. What I'd like to start with is this, the Jersey Evening Pravda, and it's a report on the Electoral Commission's visit to St Bullards. Now, what does it tell us in there? Well, there's a lovely picture of Deputy Montford Tadyer and a nice bit of text. It says, Deputy Tadyer, who agrees with the Commission's strategy. Well, no, he doesn't, does he, Mr Bright? Deputy Tadyer fully supports having super constituencies. He supports in things like transferable voting. But he most definitely does not support the retention of the constables in any shape or form. Now, this is the type of opinion management that is so worrying in Jersey. The Jersey Evening Post, the Jersey Evening Pravda get away with this time and time again. And it's probably a very good example of why we need a media ombudsman. Shoddy standards like this just should not be acceptable. You know, this week in the States saw what appears to be the formation of a new comedy double act, the sort of Eric and Ernie of Jersey politics. And it was quite surprising to see who that double act was, because it was my good friend, Constable Dan Murphy of Greville, and the alleged Chief Minister, Senator Ian Gorst. Now, they say that the secret of great comedy is that it's all in the timing. Why do I say that? Well, this is what took place. The Constable of Greville was getting very agitated, very excited about the fact that he kept being told that Jersey was a tax haven. He wanted to know what the Chief Minister was going to do to rectify this terrible myth. In fact, he demanded to know what the Chief Minister was going to do. The Chief Minister himself stood up and he said, yes, it was very, very important that the wider world knew what we did. Well, why do I mention timing? A couple of days later, the world did know what we do. The front of the Daily Telegraph. Drug dealers, gun runners, and Britain's biggest bank. 4,000 accounts had been leaked. Well, I have to say, if we can have drug dealers and gun runners, how many of these passed the Philip Balash sniff test? If we're not a tax haven, then I think some urgent action is needed, Senator Gorst. Now, regular viewers will probably recall that a couple of weeks ago I talked about a challenge that had been thrown out by Citizens media journalist Rico Sorda, a challenge to the editors of the Jersey Evening Pravda to go live on the BBC radio and have a debate around the issue of allegations without substance or hard evidence. Now, of course, Mr. Sorda had thrown out this challenge, and the BBC, as I say, were happy to have it on air. Unfortunately, there was a bit of a problem because the editors of the Jersey Evening Pravda bottled appearing. They wouldn't turn up, which meant that the BBC had to come up with another format which suited their agenda. What transpired last Friday, the 9th of November then, was that Mr. Sorda did go on the radio, as did the Home Affairs Minister, Ian Lamacor. We had former Senator Stuart Sivray. We had campaigner Mike Dunn. And we even had UK MP John Hemmings, who's taken a keen interest in Jersey and the problems with our judicial and political system. Now, what transpired during that debate can be listened to on the excellent Jersey Way blog site, and I would recommend that all viewers go and have a listen to that. But perhaps the most fascinating thing that emerged from this was that it was the bloggers who turned out to have all the evidence. They were demonstrated to be the ones who do the real research, the real journalism. The director of the local BBC, John Gripton, was also interviewed, and he was put on the spot, or so we hoped, by Matthew Price. He was asked, for instance, about the Graham Power 62,000 word affidavit. Now this relates to the Operation Rectangle and his suspension. Now we know that Mr. Gripton has this document. The fact he has this document, in fact, is completely inarguable. Yet, pushed several times, Mr. Gripton wouldn't confirm either way whether he had it. You might think that's hard-hitting journalism until you listened to the UK version, where we saw the director of the BBC, George Entwistle, now resigned, being absolutely grilled by one of his employees, John Humphrey. What a difference. What a highlighting of what's wrong with local media reporting. You know, if you're going to be a journalist, you've got to have some backbone. You've got to think of the bigger picture. Jersey, I'm afraid, this just does not seem to happen. And that's why the bloggers, citizens media, are growing in popularity with every passing day. They do their research, they tell it how it is, and that's why more and more people are turning to them to find out the truth of what really is happening in this most secretive of islands. The island, as I say, that democracy forgot. Now, a few weeks ago, I told viewers about a story which involved the exploitation by Condor Ferries of Ukrainian seafarers. These Ukrainians were being paid £2.35 an hour to work very long hours, indeed hours that would be completely unacceptable in most European legislation. Now, our mainstream media, our state media, had hardly touched this story, yet Deputy Shona Pittman brought it up in the States and made an issue of it, quite rightly. Under questioning, the minister responsible, the Economic Development Minister, said yes, he was uncomfortable with this, but really he could do no more than wring his hands and say, there's nothing I can do. Well, here we have an example of a backbencher doing what the minister should be doing, because Deputy Pittman, following up this story, has been in touch with the Economic Development Minister's counterpart in Guernsey, because, as viewers will probably recall, it's through a loophole in the Guernsey law that this exploitation is taking place. So Deputy Pittman's written to the Minister for Commerce and Employment to say, how can this sit comfortably with Guernsey's own laws? How can this be allowed to happen when Guernsey, like Jersey, will claim that it's a modern, caring democracy? Once we have an update on this, I'll let you know on the Bald Truth Review. And to finish this week's Bald Truth Review, I'm going to give you another leak of the week. What's the leak this week? Well, it revolves around the issue of a Minister for Justice in Jersey, because as most viewers will have surely noticed, one huge glaring anomaly when ministerial government was set up here, there was no attention given to justice. And my word, have we suffered as a result. Now, the leak of the week is, and I can tell viewers this with 100% certainty, that this week we'll see a proposition lodged by a senator, an establishment party senator as it happens, a proposition lodged to request a Minister for Justice in Jersey be created. Do we need one? Yes, we do. But there's one huge problem with this. And that problem is this. Without direct oversight from the UK, who could be put forward for this role? Who could take on this role that isn't so deeply entrenched in the Jersey way? Who isn't so heavily conflicted in the establishment party way of doing things in the island that they could take on this role and inspire any kind of confidence in the public? I'll leave that question for you to think about, because without UK oversight, in my opinion, the creation of a Jersey Justice Minister would just be a rubber stamp for legitimising corruption. So remember, get involved, because if you don't do politics, politics will do you.